Before, book of Psalms. Job chapter 1. Let me get to this. Yeah. In the first chapter, we see that Job was a man in verse 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5, whatever. You see that Job was a man, especially verse 2 and 3, says he had 7 sons and 3 daughters. And all his possessions, also his possessions were 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 5,000 yoke of oxen, 500 female donkeys, and a very large household. So that this man was the greatest of all the people of the East. And it takes a whole lot of territory to hold that many animals. All right? Don't fool yourself. They're not stacked in a barn. All right? And they're not on one country acre. All right? Alone, I mean, just take the 7,000 sheep. It takes some ground for 7,000 sheep to be on and to feed on and to be in some kind of harmony. That's 7,000 sheep. It's a lot of sheep. We're not talking about packing them in food line either. We're talking about 7,000 sheep that's roaming the ground, that has to be fed, that has to be watched and all that, okay? We're talking about possessions and the restoration of things, all right? And you and I know when we read the story that it talks about how Satan approached God and told him, and God asked him, God was the one that initiated this bad boy. God asked him, said, have you checked out Job? And he says, yeah, I seen him, but you got a hedge around him. Isn't it nice to know that God's got some protection around you? Isn't it? I mean, I'm serious now. We're living in days when you need some protection. All right? Don't be going wild. The one of the young kids that used to come to this ministry, Eric, what's Eric's last name? Greer. Eric Greer. Somebody tried to play picnic with him the other day. Stabbed him 13 times, I heard. 13 times? 13 times. He's doing better. But somebody stabbed him 13 times. See, you don't know when some person might go off on you. So you sit here every Sunday and we tell you guys, we're living in a very dangerous world. And some people take it lightly because you got a comfort zone that you follow every day. And it's like a rut. My grandfather, y'all remember Shorty? My grandfather had this path that went from the well at his house, right straight down between a couple of sheds that he had, passed right by Shorty's pen and lot, and it went right straight down to what he used to call the pig pen. And down at that space where he raised pigs, he'd have 25 or 30 hogs down there and whatever. But that trail that came right straight down there was a rut that ran from the well all the way down to that pig pen. And he could feel, we used to draw water. We didn't have no hose where you pour water, We didn't have no pump. We had our hands. We drew water, okay, out of the well. And we used to fill those barrels up on that wagon. And guess what? You could turn Shorty loose and he would walk all the way to that pig pen because the rut was already there. He didn't have to have anybody to say, go to the left, go to the right, do this or do that. The rut had been designed from the wheels of the wagon many times making the trip. You didn't even have to tell him what to do. It was an automatic thing. He got in the rut, and he stayed in the rut all the way down to the pig pen. When he got there, he would stop. Now, the deal is, guess what? We set up our lives like that. We set up things, and we follow the little rut system every day, and we are comfortable in that rut system. And there are a lot of people out there, I'm telling you right now, that's a danger to your lifestyle, to the way you live, the way you think. And if you don't prepare yourself and have God in your life in these days, have our Father in heaven working in us in these days and around us and whatever, let me tell you something. Somebody will take advantage of you because they don't like you, just because you're a Christian. So you got to make the best of everything that God's given us and live this life because that's what He wants us to have. He wants to be with you every day, supply you every day, be a part of your life every day, enjoy this wonderful trip through His Son Jesus that He's given to us because He's waiting for you and I to get to eternity so that we don't have to deal with this stuff anymore and He won't have to deal with us in this stuff anymore, but He will be in a place and you'll be in a place where, guess what, He can give us His very best. We can share the very best of God once we cross that line. But you've got to learn to get out of the ruts of life and get into the adventures of God by receiving the things that God wants you to have, living those things out, enjoying those things, I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm preaching right now, all right? And doing those things that's going to cause excitement in your life. We got too many Christian people not even excited about God. You know, you ask them, is this, is that? And they go, well, I don't know. Well, this. No, you should know. You know, you're married to Jesus. You're married to a man, you ought to know something about him. I mean, you ought to, you know. And we're married to Jesus, so you ought to know something about him. Is he nice? Is he good? Is he kind, affectionate? Is he forgiving? You know, is he, you know, whatever. What is he to you? You got to know that. If you don't know, you're missing out on life. So in the first chapter, what we see is Job with all of these possessions. And then we see Satan propped in on the way he is because he can only be what he is, and that's a thief that comes to steal, kill, and destroy. So Satan immediately, on the apple of God's eye, he really wants to go, okay, let me take care of this. You got a hedge around him, blah, blah, blah. God says, okay, go on. He's yours. Go take everything that he owns. And we see the story. We've read the story. We've heard the story ever since we were little kids coming up. The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. Blessed be the name of the Lord. That's not the story. That's not the story. All right? So what we have here is the taking away of something that's possessed by somebody. Job's got all these cattle, all these, you know, these sheep, all these everything. And Satan comes in, steals everything, sends somebody there to kill this, kill it, just wipe out everything the man's got. The man is only left with his life. Now, how many of you ever been in a spot where that's all you had was your life? I've been there. Well, all you got is life. You don't have anything else. Ain't nobody there to help you. Ain't nobody there to encourage you. Ain't nobody there to give you nothing. Guess what? It's just you, and guess what? Your choice of are you going to live or are you going to just go on and die? See? Now it's going to come down to nitty-gritty where the rubber meets the road. But we see in chapter 42. Now let's flip in chapter 42. Because if we had to read this all night, we'd be here all week. Y'all didn't get that. Because it would take a week to explain this whole book. In chapter 42, again, we're talking about restoration. And what I really want to talk to you tonight about is the criticism that you're going to get for wanting to be restored. The criticism that comes when you stand up and tell somebody, well, you know, I'm just believing God that I'm healed. Well, girl, you know, so-and-so died. They're criticizing you. They're analyzing what you're saying, and they're judging you for saying that you're going to be better. You stand up and you say, God's going to promote me. I'm going to get a better job or whatever. They start telling you, oh, you better be glad you got the job you got, blah, blah, blah. No. We're not talking about what we don't appreciate. We're talking about what God's going to do in our life because he's God and he loves us. And people will begin to criticize you over everything that you believe in God for. You live in a world that's a negative world. And so when you stand up and you say, man, I'm going to make my marriage the best marriage on earth, they be going like, there ain't no more good men. Oh, come on, y'all talk to me. I mean, people tell you all that kind of stuff. You know, you hear all that kind of stuff, you know. Ain't no more good men, blah, 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 and all that. Well, just because you had 2 bad apples, and it may not have been the bad apples, you may be the bad apple, and they may have been good apples because you threw your bad stuff on them. You know? Y'all understand me? All right. So, let's check this out. Chapter 42. Here we go. In verse 7, after God has talked to Job and asked Job all these questions. Where were you when I did this? And where were you when the morning star sang? You know, where were you when the goats have their babies? And all? God's asking Job all this stuff, man. And Job's going like, oh, man, I should have shut up a long time ago. God is laying it on Job thick, you know. And then Job says, you know something? I was wrong. I was talking without knowledge, without understanding. Forgive me. I was saying things that I didn't have all this about. And God saying, okay, I got you now. I got you back because I just want to make sure you keep your integrity. Then he goes on to say this in verse 7. The Lord jumped on Job's friends. And why did he jump on Job's friends? Look what he says. My wrath is aroused against you and your 2 friends, for you have not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has. In other words, God is saying, you criticized me. You tried to criticize what's happening here. you try to analyze it and judge it based on what you think. And you don't know what's going on here. Because see, at the time, none of them had ever met Satan. They'd never met him. So they didn't know that he was doing all this stuff, that he was the one that, was stealing, killing, and destroying. And God shows up and tells them, listen, you didn't speak like Job. You didn't talk like Job. You brought some accusations against me. And because you did, you better fix it right now. Or I'm going to fix you. And it says that God told him, he says, listen, now therefore take for yourselves, verse 8, 7 bulls and 7 rams. We know 7 is what? 7 is completion. All right? He says, take 7 rams, 7 bulls, and he says, for yourself, go to my servant Job, and go back to the man that was criticizing. Go back to Job. He says, and offer up for yourselves a burnt offering, and my servant Job shall pray for you, for I will accept him, lest I deal with you according to your folly, because you've not spoken of me what is right, as my servant Job has. How many of you know that you've been looking for some cows quick? God tells you, you better go do this or I'm going to be on your case. You've been looking for some cows. You've been buying some cows. You've been doing something, showing them at Safeway, Food Line, or whatever, getting everything you could, Farmer Dale, whatever you could, because God's saying, if you don't do this, I'm going to fix you up. All right? And it says in verse 10, now this is what most people don't like to read about Job, because this is restoration. And this is what you're going to receive after you go through all the criticisms. See, after you learn to stand on what you know is right. When people are saying this or talking about you, how many of you ever had some of your family members talk about you? Everybody in the house. All right? You ought to get a mirror and say, he's talking about me right now. Everybody in the house. All right? So this is what happens when you hold on to your integrity and you say, no. The Lord told me to do this, and I did it because he told me to do it, and I'm going to hold on to what he told me to do, and I'm going to follow this through all the way to the end. Because guess what? The one that I'm trusting is the one who made the stars, the moon, the sky, the universe, and everything. The one that I'm trusting is the one who feeds everything every day. All the birds, all the fish, all the ants, the bugs, everything. Everything gets supplied either in the daylight or the nighttime from the Lord. I'm trusting the one. See, you got to settle something. I'm trusting the one who's did everything, given everything, even gave me his own son because of my sin. So why can't I trust him in what he's told me to hold on to and do? See, this is the one that you're talking about. You're not talking about your banker or some real estate person or, a congressman or somebody who does not have a perfect will. See, you're talking about God. There's no imperfections in his emotions, nor in his will about us. And seeing you can't impress God. So no matter what you do or mistakes you make, guess what? You didn't fool him. See, he knows you. See, so he's not going to go, oh man, I didn't believe Kason would have did that. He ain't like that. He already knows what you'll do. So you can't fool him with any kind of thing, and you can't lure him into having some false imagination about you. See, he already knows us. So the deal is to trust God. See? And when you trust God and going through all the stuff that you're going through and all that, guess what? God is going to show up. And he's going to show up in a way that's going to make you almost think that what you went through was a dream. See? He can bring people into your life and change you had a nasty husband or you had a nasty wife. He can bring people into your life to make you think, man, was that me back there? I got this woman there that loved me, man. When I get home, man, she got a hot tub waiting on me and hot towel wetting soaky, or breakfast in bed and all. I mean, you can find, got a husband to send me flowers on the job. I get it wherever I am. There's something showing up, a card or something. You can find somebody. Don't you fool yourself. Don't you let the enemy tell you that this is the end of life because you got a rotten apple somewhere. No. Bad relationship, bad job, bad position, something. No. God will fix things for you. But you got to learn, you got to commit, and you got to do what he says. See? Without that, there ain't no such thing as getting to no place of restoration. It says this about Job. Listen. The Lord restored Job's losses. I never heard a preacher preach that. I always heard the Lord taketh. The Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away. The Lord restored Job's losses when he prayed for his friends. What? See, there's a connection in there.